Warlock armors were buffs that Warlocks could only apply to themselves, and they could only have one up at a time, much like the Mage's armors. These Warlock armors have been around since vanilla, and many times over the years have been removed and re-added in different ways. Originally, the armors had 30-minute durations and could be dispelled. However, come patch 2.4 in the Burning Crusade, the magic effect tag was removed from them, and they are no longer able to be dispelled, making them simply passives the Warlocks had to keep up on themselves. Only changed again come Cataclysm, where the armors all became infinite durations. Once cast, the only way they would go away is if you cancelled it, changed to another armor, or died. Warlocks have had 3 armors over the years, the first 2 being Demon Skin and Demon Armor, both added in vanilla. The third being Fel Armor, added in the Burning Crusade. The first of these 2 armors was Demon Skin, which was learned at level 1 but only had 2 low-level ranks, where the second armor, Demon Armor, was learned at level 20 and had many ranks leading all the way up to level 60. As these 2 armors were very similar, we will talk a bit about what made them different, but overall, the changes will be lumped together. Demon Skin gave armor and a slight amount of health regen, while Demon Armor gave both of these and Shadow Resist. Demon Skin was very much useless once you learned Demon Armor, as Demon Armor had right out better stats, plus 1 extra stat, giving vanilla Warlocks no real reason to even have Demon Skin on their bars once reaching level 20, outside of being a low mana cost dispel fodder in PvP, before the Burning Crusade made them undispellable. In Wrath of the Lich King, Demon Skin and Demon Armor's health regen was changed to instead increase the amount of healing generated through spells and effects the Warlocks had by 20%, really only affecting the odd minor self-healing talent, health stones, potions, bandages, and drain light. They also removed the shadow resist aspect of the armors, making both of them nearly identical, other than the fact that Demon Armor was still a higher level version. In Cataclysm, Demon Skin was removed, leaving only Demon Armor, which was then changed from a level 20 to level 8 as its starting level, as during vanilla to Wrath of the Lich King, some classes had spells that were simply weaker versions of spells they would then later learn, like a mage's Ice and Frost Armor. Mages would learn Frost Armor at low levels, and then learn Ice Armor around level 30, which was just a straight up better version of Frost Armor, just like Demon Skin and Demon Armor. Cataclysm tried to streamline this by removing these deemed useless spells, as really, once you reach the level to replace them, they really were useless. Come Mista Pandaria, Demon Armor was removed, ending their legacy for now, as Demon Armor was only really used once in a while for the armor and healing to help Warlocks in solo content, or even in the rare situations where Warlocks were used as off-tanks. It was even used in PvP in some situations, as the self-healing aspect of it gave a boost to Drain Life and Haunt for Affliction, as well as Hellstones and Bandages, giving them powerful self-healing capabilities. Demon Skin and Demon Armor sort of set the scale for the Warlock class fantasy of being the tankiest caster. So, even though the spells were mostly lost and forgotten, you can say the armor still very much affect the class as a whole, even to this day, especially with their recent return. Demon Skin and Demon Armor actually were quite polished, unlike many other spells, only having one real problem within their lifetime. Before patch 1.6 in vanilla, they only gave out a combat health regen, when they were supposed to be giving both an out of combat and in combat health regen. Luckily, changed with that patch, making it much more effective, while Fel Armor had no notable bugs in its lifetime. And now into our final armor, Fel Armor. Fel Armor was added in the Burning Crusade. It was learned at level 62, meaning it was pretty quick to get for people who entered the new expansion. What made this armor the best of the three, and almost always used, was its focus on damage, instead of survivability like Demon Skin and Armor had. Fel Armor gave 20% increased healing through spells and effects, while also giving large amounts of spell power to the Warlock, increasing their damage, while Demon Armor had no damage increasing capabilities. While Demon Armor was nice for its defenses, in World of Warcraft raids, where healers exist, the increased damage and self-healing made Fel Armor the go-to choice in most content. In Wrath of the Lich King, Fel Armor's 20% increased self-healing aspect got given to Demon Skin and Demon Armor, and instead, Fel Armor now gave a 2% health regen every 5 seconds, while keeping its increased spell power component. But one new addition, it gave you extra spell power equal to 30% of your spirit. Now, this seems like a minor thing, however, at the time of Wrath of the Lich King, Demonology Warlocks had a spec based around this. With the help of the Glyph of Life Tap, which gave you spell power equal to 20% of your spirit, this allowed for a Warlock to stack gear which had both spell power and spirit, and gaining damage from a stat that was usually deemed useless for them, as spirit as a stat only increased their out-of-combat mana regeneration and was more of a healer stat. All of this added up to a large amount of spell power on the Warlock, paired with Demonic Pack, giving the entire raid spell power equal to 10% of your spell power. It became pretty much required, at least in 25-man raids, to bring a heavily stacked spell power / spirit Demonology Warlock. Fel Armor was a massive role in this Demonic Pack spec, meaning for massive, almost trinket-like effects that could be permanently kept up for your entire raid of casters and healers, causing Warlocks to usually be the first choice to be given the best spell power gear. With Cataclysm, however, the spirit to spell power conversion was sadly removed, leaving this short but sweet spell power support Warlock spec in the dust, before then being changed nearly right away with patch 4.0.6 into an entirely new style. Fel Armor still increased your spell power, but now instead of giving health regen, gave you 3% of your single target damage as healing, allowing for Warlocks to become very powerful self-healers. As their damage increased, so too did this Leech effect, as long as they were attacking one target. The effect of this was that even DPS cooldowns for the Warlock became defensive cooldowns, allowing them to assist their healers through hard damage phases, where they could do a fair bit of healing to themselves. With Mist of Pandaria, the armor was no longer a self-buff that needed to be cast, basically anytime you revive after death. It was now a passive, simply increasing armor, stamina values, and health regeneration through spells. It was then changed again in patch 5.2 to be a 10% health increase, damage reduction, and health generated through spells. Changed again in patch 5.4, where the damage reduction was removed, leaving just the increased health and healing, before finally the spell was removed in Warlords of Draenor, when its bonuses were moved to Blood Pack. And now that was the end of Warlock armors, or so we thought. During 8.1 in Battle for Azeroth, Demon Armor was added back to the game as a PvP talent for Destruction and Affliction Warlocks. The spell needed to be cast like its Cataclysm version, but once cast had an infinite duration. The spell gave 10% max health to the Warlock and a huge 275% increased armor, turning a class that usually suffered massive blows from physical attacks to one that took slightly less massive blows from physical attacks. Warlocks also had Demon Skin, which, while not a normal armor in the way it used to be, was added in Legion as a talent. It worked with Soul Leech, which was a shield that Warlocks had that capped out at 10% of your health, which regenerated based on the damage you dealt. Now, the Demon Skin talent augmented this to now max out at 20%, and to generate 1% of its shield every second. This worked somewhat more with Demonology's Soul Link, which also healed based on any Soul Leech generated, making Demon Skin both a regenerating shield and increased health regen. Now, throughout all of the history of Warlock armors, unlike the Mage armors, who had many glyphs and talents that affected their armors, Warlocks had 0 glyphs and only 1 talent, which was Demonic Aegis. Demonic Aegis was added in the Burning Crusade with 3 ranks, increasing the effectiveness of your armors by 30%, even more helping the spell power gain from Fel Armor in the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. In Cataclysm, that same talent was changed to instead give 2 ranks instead of 3, giving 10% increased armor from Demon Armor and doubling the Leech effect of Fel Armor. The talent was then removed in Mist of Pandaria with the talent rework, and funny enough, nothing else interacted with the Warlock armors until they were removed. And that's it for the history of the Warlock spell armors. They had a long lifespan and really played into the class fantasy of Warlocks using their magics to defend themselves. However, with Warlocks becoming a lot more tanky in other ways, and the loss of Warlock off-tanking completely, it has become rare for Warlocks to see these armors return. If you have any other videos you'd like to see, make sure to put them in the comments for a future video. I do read them, and I do try to respond as many as I can, and I have used many comments as video ideas in the past, including this one.